on this edition of Somerville Neighborhood News. A meeting about plans for Winter Hill, a conversation on the unaccompanied kids who recently arrived in Somerville, a visit to a Nepali Dasein celebration, a warning about feeding the birds, interviews on the street about local news, a cameo appearance by Brian Williams, and how 2,500 Fluffernutter sandwiches help young musicians. All this and more on Somerville Neighborhood News.
Hello, and welcome to Somerville Neighborhood News. Today is October 7th. I'm Colby Smallzell. Somerville Neighborhood News is a community service production of SCATV, put together by staff, interns, and your neighbors. We bring you the news every 2 weeks on SCATV Channel 3 and on our website, somervilleneighborhoodnews.org. We hope you'll share our stories by sending a link or posting to Facebook. We begin with a message from our colleague, NBC anchor Brian Williams, about News Engagement Day, which happens to be today, October 7th.
As people, we communicate and engage with news in a growing number of ways. The old ways, read, watch, and listen, have been joined and replaced in some cases by words like tweet and like and post and link and share and discuss. These are all words of engagement. Imagine a day when everyone engages with the news. That is the goal of National News Engagement Day. The National Organization of Journalism Teachers, AEJMC, the Association for Education in Journalism and Mass Communication, is working with schools, universities, civic organizations, and the media to make National News Engagement Day a priority.
What do people around Somerville think about local news? Reporter Kayla Mamelek wanted to find out.
Do you pay attention to local news?
As much as I can.
And what about local news do you find is important?
Well, I just want to know what's happening in the neighborhood and my local community. Lately, I've been really interested in local government.
Yes, I do watch local news. I think it is important both within the community and just in the greater overall community. I mean, it's important to know what's going on around you.
I don't often, but when I do watch it, I try to pay attention because it's just a lot of information, because I just kind of get scared, so I just don't watch the news, that type of thing. I see a lot of bad things happening.
Do you pay attention to local news?
I actually try not to. I find it's often quite depressing. If there were more positive stories reported, I would definitely tune in, but actually I don't. I read newspapers, but yeah.
What do you think is unimportant about local news that causes you to not watch it?
So much violence, crime, fires, murders, that kind of stuff is just sort of depressing. And it's not sort of representative, I don't think, of what actually happens in most people's daily lives. So I wish it was just more reflective of what most people experience every day.
Local news is most attractive to me because, it's what's happening around me in my town.
I don't personally watch it a lot, but I do think it's important because Somerville recently has been, changing a lot. And I think it's important for people to know the changes that are going on in their own city.
Why do you feel that local news is important?
Because it affects my life. It's my town, and so things that happen here in Somerville or the surrounding areas impact my family and me. So I pay attention.
It's really important to get a pulse on what's going on around in the city. We all kind of go through our daily routines, and we lose touch with what might be happening around us. So it's nice to get a little different perspective and find out moment to moment what's happening.
The Somerville by Design process has been overseeing the redevelopment of cities' neighborhoods. On September 29th, it was Winter Hill's turn. Elijah Kaplan brings us more.
The redevelopment of Winter Hill kicked off with a planning and idea session at the Healy Elementary School.
So one of the great elements of this planning model is it gets you folks talking more and us talking less. So, with that in mind, I'm going to try to keep my comments brief and move very quickly into a series of visual exercises.
The meeting offered residents and stakeholders a chance to voice concerns as well as bring ideas to the table so that the newly revamped Winter Hill will reflect the wants and needs of the people who live there.
That's great. It's going to be great. And I understand it's going to be ground floor retail and for your like textbook mixed use, right?
Yep.
And they need something like that. Also needs to go in, and they need to demolish that Star Market basically.
You should write it down. Things like that. But we have all this commercial stuff right in here that's basically kind of dead zone. Like, do you want to go to any of those places? I don't.
We're going to pass the microphone around, and we're going to ask folks who are comfortable to tell us some of the things that they talked about in their small groups.
So there's a bunch of little breakfast nooks.
It took our neighborhood 8 years to get the funding to redo Trump Field. It's going to take you twice as long through the state. So Foss Park is really your gateway. It is your jewel, welcoming people on Broadway. I'd highly advise you to get behind a movement to take Foss Park back.
Big park by the highway. So let's call that one out. That's
Broadway is very nice, but it doesn't drive like a boulevard. So it looks like a boulevard, but it doesn't drive like it.
Topics discussed range from the Star Market lot to crosswalks.
So I'd like to see cool places to shop, some more restaurants, some more places to go, some coffee shops, some clubs, bookstores, green spaces.
But at the same time, being this age that I'm at, I'm 32, and I feel like I'm ready to start kind of taking things seriously and taking bigger steps towards getting what I'd like to see happen in the neighborhood, I guess.
It's important to us to participate in the neighborhood that we're planning to start a family in, and it means a lot to be able to come here and express our wants and needs for that, and it'll keep us in the area.
The meeting here at Healy Elementary School gave community members and elected officials a chance to voice their concerns and opinions about the upcoming Winter Hill redevelopment. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Elijah Kaplan.
For more information on how to get involved, check out somervillebydesign.com. Now we head over to the East Somerville Community School. State Auditor Suzanne Bump released an audit of state anti-obesity programs with Mayor Joseph A. Curtatone on September 29th in an event that included a tour of the school's garden. The study looked at exercise programs and foods at school systems across the state. Almost 1/4 of Massachusetts youth are overweight. Over 10%, some 155,000 kids are obese. The audit found that the schools were doing a good job, but that the amount of physical activity varied widely, from 22 to 168 minutes per week. The report recommended that the legislature consider instituting a rule that would require 150 minutes per week.
The audits that the public hears about most often reveal malfunctions in government or misspending by contractors, and they provide examples of what not to do. That's why people say goodbye to auditors much more warmly than they say hello. Today, however, our message is largely a celebration of success, because our audit has found great progress being made toward our shared goal of raising healthy kids.
I am here with a smile on today because this is really one of Governor Patrick's signature programs, and I came to the department in 2008 to work on the obesity epidemic and to prevent chronic diseases. And we know that obesity and tobacco are the two most preventable risk factors that we have to be healthy. And so it's really great that your findings show that we're moving in the right direction with this.
We've made headway in this country. We are not there yet, and certainly not in Massachusetts. My first reaction back then, and it should be now with the auditor's work, is what do we need to do?
Of course, Mayor Curtatone is a national leader in health and wellness, and we're very fortunate to have his leadership not only here in Massachusetts but across the nation. He has really shown sort of boots on the ground how we can get this done.
Now an update on the Union Square Post Office. It's been purchased by music impresario Don Law, president of Live Nation New England. The Somerville Journal is reporting that it's sold for $2.75 million. So far, there's no formal agreement about access to the Francis Moffett mural inside, which remains U.S. Postal Service property. But according to City Hall, Law has agreed to allow the mural to be accessible to the public for more than the minimum 12 days required by law. The city's aldermen and the Advisory Council of Historic Preservation, a federal agency, say that's not enough, but both have asked for more access. Not far from the post office, some people might say Union Square is going to the birds. City officials have had just about enough. Paulette Renaud-Caragianes, outgoing director of Somerville's Board of Health, stopped by to explain why.
It's not that we don't want you to feed the birds. It's the reason we don't want you to feed the birds is because we're concerned about it attracting other pests. Birds typically don't finish up everything that's left out for them. Someone will bring a half a container of stale bread or something like that. And what's left over gets eaten. And it's not eaten by birds, it's eaten by rodents. Of course, if birds are fed too, the other thing is, there'll be a lot of bird poop around, quite frankly, which is a health concern. It's not like someone will get hauled into court, but it's like a speeding ticket. Hopefully, being warned is enough, and certainly once someone gets fined, it definitely alters their behavior. But the first thing you want to do is inform people of the law and explain to them why it's in place.
I guess I'll save my stale bread for Thanksgiving. Now let's hear what's in the October 9th Somerville Journal.
Hello, this week in the Somerville Journal we'll have the latest on the sale of the Union Square Post Office, a look at the harvest at the community gardens, and some coverage of possible new fees for events that are held in the city. You can always follow us at Ville Journal at Twitter or at wickedlocal.com/Somerville, and you can get in touch with me at 617-629-3385 or datkinson@wickedlocal.com.
We head over to Watertown for the latest edition of Community Notes. Our host is Somerville resident Nirmala Sherchen, the manager of Dunkin' Donuts on Broadway. She's bringing us to an important Nepali community event, Dasain, a 15-day celebration that commemorates the victory of the gods over demons. Durga, often depicted riding a tiger, beat Mahisasur and his minions after 9 days of fighting. As Sherchen tells us about the event, be sure to understand that when she says big people, she means elders.
We are here to celebrate our big festival, Dasera, where we take a blessing from the big people and they give us blessing and we go to their house and we eat good food. Tonight will be lots of fun, like songs, dance, food.
You like rice? Yes, I like.
That's beans.
You gonna get some?
Yeah, a little bit. It's beans. All Nepalese food.
What's the best thing in Nepal?
Happiness.
Why should we wait for once a year to celebrate that Dasai? It can happen every day. के डेली नै हामी प्रत्येक दिन दशैं मनाउन सक्छौं म यहाँ सबैको अगाडि बसेर भन्छु yes because म every day दशैं मनाउँछु.
That's why we are all gathering here to celebrate. We are in another country like, USA, far from our country. So we are all gathered here and respect our festival and enjoy with each other. The other piece of news is that we are changing our Greater Boston Nepali community. We are going to change the president and all the another members.
Greater Boston Nepali community ले सदाका वर्ष चाहिँ मनाउँदै आएको विजया दशमी 2071 म यहाँ सबैजनालाई.
We have nominated and elected 33 members of working committee. माधव प्रसाद दालजी आउँदै हुनुहुन्छ त्यसपछि गएर म क्रमशः सबैको नाम लिन्छु बधाई छ
गजलुले आँखै छोप्ने के राम्री मेरी मायालु बैसले चटकै परेकी.
Now we have an interview with two of the many people in Somerville trying to help the undocumented and unaccompanied minors who arrived in Somerville in recent months. Last summer, there was a lot of noise in the media about kids crossing the Mexican border, but since then, attention has mostly turned elsewhere. But the attention of Somerville's teachers and care providers has stayed focused on the city's newest residents.
Alex, Ann, thanks a lot for joining me here today at SCATV. I wanted to invite you down because over the summer we heard a lot about undocumented kids coming across the border. I guess we've always had kids coming here because they've got so many relatives or families that have been broken up that are getting back together, but there was a surge, there was a lot made of that, and I'm sure some kids have ended up here in Somerville, and I thought you could tell us a little bit more about that. Alex, I think you might have some statistics from the state level.
Well, at the state level, there's over probably 1,200 that have arrived in the last 8 months. It's slowed down recently because the Mexican government is putting military on the trains going north, and the conditions at the border are very bad.
And how many are here in Somerville? And do you know how many people are in the school system?
So it's a little hard for us to track exactly because there is some privacy and we don't want to ask families exactly what they've been through. But what we can tell is we have 89 documented cases since last spring of students coming. And of that, about 63 students are at the high school level.
Wow. So actually, you were telling me a story about one lady that recently came into the office who all of a sudden has a bunch of nieces and nephews.
Yeah, there's this great woman that's spending a lot of time with me recently, and she already had one son at the high school. She moved last year from the south, and now suddenly has 4 other teenagers living with her. So she's been really generous, taken in her brothers and sisters' kids, and is really giving them a great home, but really struggling as well with all these new mouths to feed and teenagers in the house.
That actually brings me to something that I think we ought to address here. In the Somerville Journal, in Speak Out, and other places, when things first started happening, and Deval Patrick said that he initially said that the state would host a lot of extra kids, there were some comments in the paper that were kind of nasty, saying, oh, they're all here because of a free ride. And there was stuff in some of the bigger newspapers saying, yeah, there was a rumor that you could all get in for free and you could get college paid for, and that's why everyone flowed across the border. But it's turned out now that that was really a myth. Not only was none of that true, but it's actually has much more historical roots. Alex, we were talking about that. Why do kids leave their country and maybe their parents or their grandparents and end up in this country? Why do kids from Central America come here?
Well, these are countries that are under tremendous stress. It's Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are the principal countries. We have in Somerville a lot of El Salvadoran families, so we're getting more from that demographic. These countries, the United States is actively, starting with the Dulles Brothers and United Fruit and on into the present, have actively destabilized these countries, have supported dictatorial regimes, have trained death squad members at the School of Americas, which is run by the American military. So we have an enormous kind of track record of making these countries very inhospitable. And I'll give you one example, which is an export from the United States, which is the MS-13 gang, which came out of the California penal system. This gang is now very adult, very violent in El Salvador. A Somerville person told me that a relative here who had been sending money back to El Salvador to help support her children, MS-13 had been to her house and said, we want a percentage of that money coming back or we'll start shooting your children one at a time. And they do this. This is not, they're not kidding around. So these families are desperate. And we also know from Mira and the Chelsea Collaborative that, and a human rights seminar that the Health Alliance just did, there are trigger events in the home country. This is not just trauma crossing the border and getting up here. These families have been persecuted and attacked in the home country, so they're not just coming for a free ride. They're desperate. They're leaving sinking ships and are terrified.
Yes, I think that maybe at a future newscast, I'm going to invite a Latin American Studies professor to explore that more. Let's talk a little bit more about how the kids are doing here. I mean, what are the challenges? What resources do you have in the school system? What do you wish you had?
So Somerville's lucky that we already had a very large immigrant population and a lot of English language learners. So we have teachers trained that are very dedicated, that are working with these students. So it's not like we had to scramble to find all these resources. The only problem is the resources are being stretched really thin. So classes that really should be 10 to 15 students for a beginner intermediate level English language learner class are up to 20, 25, even 30, because we just don't have anywhere to put all these students. The students are here. They're in school, they want to learn, but being, one on top of another and having all the things that they've been through really makes it difficult. So as a school, we're trying to provide all the resources we can and help them have a productive and welcoming school environment, but it's getting progressively harder to do so.
So I hope that eventually school budgets can be increased, but in the short term, how could somebody help if they wanted to help? It could, a family who might have extra clothing, or maybe it's somebody who is studying to be a social worker. What kinds of needs could be filled by, regular folk who could give something, maybe of their time or of their income?
So at the high school, we would love to have any kind of volunteers. Anybody that has any experience working with immigrants, speaks Spanish, could tutor in math, tutor in English. Anyone who just has some time, maybe wants to mentor a student. I'm the volunteer coordinator at the high school, and there's a way to sign up online on the Somerville Public Schools website. So we'd love to have volunteers come and spend time. College students, retirees, anybody that might have some time, we really welcome that.
Okay, well, with winter coming, I'm sure there'll be a need for coats and boots and a lot of other things. So we'll try and do a follow-up story on this. Thank you very much for joining me today. I know you're both busy. You've got about 5 hats that you wear up at the high school. I don't know how you end up looking so cheery, because I think that there are tough times in Somerville, but let's hope that the community can continue to pull together and help these kids. Thanks a lot.
All of the children will need to appear in immigration court, and this can sometimes mean an expensive airplane ticket back to Texas. Caregivers need to change the court venue and prepare for the hearing. Catholic Charities is offering free legal advice in English or Spanish for anyone hosting a child. Call attorney Santos Flores at 617-464-8125. Here are 2 quick announcements. Do you know a student who is 12 or older, has a band, tells jokes, or has any other talents? Get them to audition for Somerville Rocks on Thursday, October 9th at 6 p.m. in the City Cable Studio in the main library basement. For more information, contact Jimmy Del Ponte at 617-625-6600, extension 2616, or at jdelponte@somervillema.gov. Want to weigh in on the proposed campaign finance law that was recently vetoed by the mayor? Come to a public hearing and make your opinion heard on Tuesday, October 14th at 7 p.m. at City Hall. The Board of Aldermen will hold a veto override vote after the hearing. Now, important advice from Dr. Ira Michelson.
Hello, I'm Dr. Ira Michelson for the Health Minute. I want to talk to you today about infectious diseases that are coming up this winter and the importance of getting immunized. Every year as the temperatures fall and we get into fall and winter, we hear a lot about the flu and pneumonia and other things that are coming up. And everybody should know that it's very important to get immunized. We have a lot of very effective vaccines that are available, and they're very safe. And you can get them almost anywhere, at any clinic or any pharmacy today. You can get the flu vaccine, and you can also get the pneumonia vaccine. And it's far better to get vaccinated with this safe, very effective vaccine than to come down with the actual disease, which can be a very big bother. So I'm urging everybody to check in at your local clinic, get the flu vaccine, get the pneumonia vaccine, and if you need to, you can even get the vaccine against the shingles virus, which is now available as well. And this is Dr. Ira Michelson for the Health Minute.
Last up, we head to the high school where there was something nutty and fluffy going on recently.
One! This is so
PB and Fluff.
So the Fluff Festival is going to be tomorrow, and we make these sandwiches as a way for fundraising. And a lot of us go on field trips, so we're trying to go to DC for orchestra.
Is this enough peanut butter? Just put like a lot. That's all I gotta say. Okay.
Last year we took a trip to Nashville to participate in a choral tournament, a choral festival. A couple years ago we went to Washington D.C. for the same tournament, and yeah, that kind of thing.
The orchestra and the band have also taken trips outside of the state, and those funds, those costs are not paid for through the school committee. So we do fundraisers like this in order to help cover our expenses.
I went to the Fluff Factory yesterday in Lynn, the Durkee Mower Factory, to get the fluff for the sandwiches. They're wonderful people. We also used Teddy peanut butter from Everett, and our bread came from a Market Basket from Arthur T.
Just keep going.
5, Fluff, and 9, 1 for 3, 2 for 5. Help support Somerville High School Music
Fluff Nutters! They're delicious!
It's doing fine. It's just I can't keep up with the ones. I keep losing all my ones. It's so hard. Actually, they have something smaller, okay?
For our next contestants on What's My Fluffernutter?
After this, I'm kind of, I'm done with it. I'll eat it, If it's for music, I'll do it, but other than that, I'm good. It's a lot of marshmallow.
Thank you so much.
Nashville was amazing. I can't even explain it. It was like a life-changing experience, There's not many kids in the school that get to go on trips and opportunities like that. So when you do, it's like you feel blessed, basically, And to be able to sing in front of like the world with other schools from other states, not even just Boston, Massachusetts, but it's from like California, Nashville, New York, from all over. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
Around $5,000 were raised at the Fluffernutter Sandwich event. These funds will go to the band, orchestra, and choir for field trips to competitions. Reporting for Somerville Neighborhood News, I'm Elijah Kaplan.
Believe it or not, 2,500 sandwiches didn't raise quite enough money. About 80% of the kids need financial aid for the trips. If you want to sponsor a young musician, contact the music department at the Somerville High School. That's all for tonight. We'll be back on October 21st. And don't forget, you can listen to Somerville Neighborhood News online on Boston Free Radio, SCATV's internet radio station. You can hear it every Friday from 6 to 6:30 p.m. at bostonfreeradio.com. You can also watch and read news stories at somervilleneighborhoodnews.org. And be sure to check out our Facebook page, SCATV SNN, and share your favorite segment. Or send a tweet at SCATV SNN. We welcome you to get involved with Somerville Neighborhood News. Become a reporter or just send in your ideas. Call us at 617-628-8826 or write to news@scatvsomerville.org. I'm Colby Smallzell. See you around the neighborhood.